You're listening to Bold Adulting, your guide to courage in the face of self-doubt.
Welcome to the podcast, Elena. Can you tell the audience about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm a postdoc in the Salk Institute in the Nicola Allen's neurobiology lab, and I study a special type of cells that we have in our brains. They are called the astrocytes, and they help neurons to develop their connections.
Can you tell us, why did you agree to come on my podcast and talk about confidence and the other kinds of issues that arise in science?
I'm very interested in science communication and education in general. And when you came to me and you told me about this, I thought it was a very good idea because I found that a lot of scientists and people in our field, and when they are doing their grad studies, there's a lot of lack of confidence, and we just need to talk about it to get over it.
Can you tell us about any confidence issues you've had because of English not being your first language, and also about moving from another country?
Sure. I'm originally from Spain. And my first experience in another country, it was in 2007. I moved to Greece and I was there for a year. So there I had to communicate in English, even though it's not their language either. Then I did my PhD studies in England, and that's where I started to be more self-conscious about my accent and about my ability to communicate, because obviously it's not my first language. So if I get stuck with a particular word, I cannot come up with something to say it in another way, and that still happens. But I've been living in English speaking countries for 6 years now, 7 years, so it's just a matter of practice. It's always gonna be harder than speaking Spanish, but you just have to be confident. And to be honest, in science a lot of people don't speak English, so it's a problem that a lot of people share. So it's just keep communicating, keep speaking, and keep practicing, and practice makes perfection, they say.
Can you talk about how anxiety has affected you as a scientist?
So this is something that I think pretty much everyone experiences when you are a scientist and you are in a scientific field. It's they call it imposter syndrome, and I think that's the main problem in terms of confidence and anxiety. I used to feel that a lot when I was a grad student, and it's been gradually disappearing. To be honest, it helped me a lot to talk about it to other people, to my colleagues, because then you find out that everyone pretty much is feeling this. So it's just something very common, everyone feels it, and yeah, it eventually goes away.
I definitely agree. I think talking to people is by far the absolute best thing you can do to rid yourself of imposter syndrome.
Definitely.
Have people generally been receptive when you talk to them about this?
Yeah, and it's surprisingly receptive. You start talking about it, and I remember the first time I talked about it, it was with a good friend, so I didn't feel that bad about just bringing it up. But then you start talking about it with other colleagues, and yeah, in the beginning you may feel like, oh, they're gonna laugh at me, or they are just not gonna believe me. But it was quite the opposite. Everyone was very sympathetic, and they tell you that they feel the same. Like just right before coming here, I was talking to my the other postdoc in the lab, and she was saying, oh yeah, I feel that all the time. And she didn't even know it's called imposter syndrome, right? But yeah, everyone feels it, and it kind of makes one feel a little bit better about it, because it's a common thing. It's nothing extraordinary, or it's not a problem, really.
I think once you start talking about it, and put that name on it, people often can feel reassured because they realize, oh, these feelings I have about not being good enough, that's not just me.
Yeah, I agree, totally.
And you can tell your colleague I'm happy to have him or her on as well. Can you talk about how you deal with anxiety?
I guess I deal with it trying to disconnect from what it causes me, this anxiety. In general, science doesn't cause me that much anxiety anymore, because I've been working in science for a long time. I mean, not as much as other people, but enough. So, but other situations cause me anxiety, and yeah, for that I go to music shows, I play instruments, I practice Muay Thai. These kind of things are very different from the things that cause me anxiety, and that helps me to forget about it for a little bit, and then I feel better. And also yoga helps. I know everyone keeps saying it, but it's actually true, I think.
What kind of instruments do you play?
I play guitar. I learned many years ago, but recently I started playing ukulele and the bass guitar.
Wow. You said that over time you've felt less anxiety from your science. Mm-hmm. What was it about being in science longer that made your anxiety go away?
Again, talking to people, talking to other colleagues, you realize that your science is just as good as anyone else's. So you don't have to feel insecure about it. Sometimes projects are better, sometimes they are worse, sometimes you get better data, you are lucky, you get beautiful results. Some other times it doesn't work, but that's still science. It's still part of the scientific method and everything. So it shouldn't be causing anxiety to anyone. I guess it's a matter of getting used to it.
Yeah, maybe you start to realize that anxiety is always there and that's just part of the game.
Yeah, it's part of life in general. So I guess the longer you deal with it, the better you learn to deal with it as well.
Do you have anything else that you want to tell our audience about confidence?
I mean, I don't think I'm the most confident person, but I don't think I lack confidence either. And I've said it already, but I like to stress that talking to colleagues and other people helps a lot, because then you realize that sometimes just keeping it to yourself is not going to help. And people are more receptive than you would expect most of the times. So just find the right person. Just, don't just go around and tell everyone or anyone. But most of the times people are going to listen and they are actually going to give good advice. So I think that's the way to go and boost your confidence and the anxiety.
I do end up talking about imposter syndrome to almost everybody. I even dressed up as it for Halloween. And so almost every conversation I had that night was about imposter syndrome. And so I can definitely say that people they do tend to be receptive, and with almost no exceptions, they say, oh, wow, I've totally experienced that.
Yeah.
It's worth saying over and over, yes, open up and talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests. The first one is, how do you define adulting?
So adulting for me it's behaving as an adult, as a grown-up, doing all these kind of things that we are expected to do because we reach certain age or certain status, and society is what expect to from us. So from doing your taxes to being more diplomatic and congratulate people when they have babies, these kind of things.
What do you do when you need a confidence boost?
Kind of the same way that I get rid of my anxiety. So again, going to music shows, play instruments, practicing sports, talking to friends and family, people who I know they are going to boost my confidence.
I think when you do things that are when you do things other than just science, that, like you said, not only relieves anxiety, but it also reminds you that you have a life outside of science. And so even if your science isn't working out, then you can still feel good about yourself because you can do all these other things and enrich lots of people's lives.
Yeah, I agree on that. Sometimes when we work, science, you work a lot of hours, right? Some days you are there for 14 hours and that burns out. It's maybe if you have to do it, it's fine, but you have to know your limits as well. It's not worth it being there 14 hours every day feeling miserable, because your experiments are not even going to work. Your brain needs a break. So
you're going to mess up.
Yeah, probably.
And can you tell us about something that you've been struggling with recently, and if possibly I or our audience can do anything to help?
I guess I'm learning to delegate lately. During my when I was a grad student, I had big trouble delegating because I wouldn't trust anyone with my experiments. I wanted to do everything myself, And now as a postdoc, I have a very big workload and I need to delegate. So I've been learning to do that, trust people a little bit more, especially with my experiments.
And where can our audience find you online?
They can follow me in Twitter. My handle is at westboundsigned. And usually I post a lot of things about science communication and the science education and science outreach that I do.
So find her at Westbound Signed, and that's signed as in SIGNED. And you're also a science communicator online, so where can our audience read about some of the writings that you've done about science?
Yeah, so I collaborate with NeuWrite San Diego, which is a neuroscience blog. And I've been posting things there, also translating articles to Spanish. So if you are a Spanish speaker, there's also a bunch of material there. That's for now. I have more projects in storage, but they are not quite out there.
We can't wait to see those. And for those of you who want to check those out, NeuWrite there's several different spellings of the word NeuWrite. This one is NEUWRITE. Definitely recommend checking them out. Thanks so much, Elena, for coming on the show. And now a bonus segment where Elena gives advice to grad students for the situations they're dealing with. I'm actually really surprised that I got into grad school because my undergrad GPA is low and I don't have much research experience. Now I'm freaked out about starting grad school. What if I'm not ready?
So my answer to that is that you should remember that grad school is a training period. So it's fine that you don't have experience. You will acquire this experience during your grad studies. Like, nobody starts being an expert. Everyone has to start somewhere. So you'll be fine, really.
I'm starting my second year of grad school, and although I feel like I've improved a lot, I still feel really behind in my development as a scientist compared to my classmates. Have you ever felt this way, and do you have any advice?
So comparisons are always bad. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to anyone. You just need to feel confident about what you're doing, and probably that feeling is gonna it's gonna be hard to get rid of it, because I'm done with my grad studies and I'm a postdoc and I kind of still feel it sometimes. So what I came to realize is that I shouldn't be comparing my science to anyone else's. Just, be confident that the thing you're doing is the right thing and you're doing your best, and that should be good enough.
English isn't my first language, but I'm starting a PhD program in the US. I'm really freaked out about making friends and keeping up in my classes. Can you help?
Yes, I exactly went through the same thing. I'm from Spain and I moved to England to start my PhD program, and actually now in hindsight, I don't even know how I made it through, how I got through it. So, if you got into the program and you clearly speak English, you are going to be fine. Don't worry. I know it's very intimidating and you think you're not going to understand and you're going to miss information, but you won't. It's just feel confident. You'll be fine. It's fine, really. I'm still struggling sometimes, and I know I'm, proficient enough to get by.
Do you think that people need to actually do extra prep work if they're coming from another country, or just trust that they'll be okay?
Everyone needs to know which level they have. If they feel like they need an extra boost and extra preparation, they can do it. If you feel like your English is not good, then you can do, for instance, what I was doing. It was a language exchange, finding conversation partners. So that was online. I found people who wanted to learn Spanish and I could practice my English. So just meet up in a bar or in a coffee shop and having conversations about random stuff. And usually people are really nice. It's also a great way of making friends. And it's super useful to improve your English and feeling more confident.
And I know that there's also some websites that connect people to do the same thing over Skype.
Yeah. I prefer the face-to-face always, but yeah.
I have no idea how to critique a paper after reading it. When I'm reading a paper, I barely even understand it, and I definitely can't think of questions to ask about it. I'm so scared for grad school classes. What do I do?
I think that's fine. You will learn to do it, and they will prepare you for this in your grad school. Science, it's very wide. You're never gonna be able to, critique every single paper and come up with intelligent questions every time, and that's absolutely fine. That's something that everyone experiences. I was talking about this thing the other day with one grad student in my lab, and he was saying exactly the same thing. And to me, he's a brilliant student. He's really good. But still, that's something that happens. Even with my boss, sometimes, we talk about the paper and we don't know about that technique or something. You have to look up more information. But, I mean, you are clever enough. You will understand. You're just gonna need to look up more information or finding another more resources or so.
And trust in the training process.
Yeah, of course.
I don't fit in with the other students in my grad school cohort and I feel so alone. What do I do?
Well, I would say find people somewhere else. It's okay not to fit in. I felt like that a lot of times in high school and middle school. Also during my PhD program, I remember that I didn't feel like I was like the other students. I think that's totally fine. You can find people outside science that would be actually healthy. You can talk about something else in besides science. You can always be nice to people, and you don't have to be exactly the same or liking exactly the same things. Just, I don't know, try and see what happens. But if you don't fit in, I wouldn't force it. It's fine.
There's a student in my grad school class who's being bullied by others in the class. I feel bad for them and think about trying to interfere, but I feel pretty disconnected from my classmates already because we're all deep into our own projects and I don't want to make it worse for myself. Is there anything I can do?
Well, I find shocking this situation because all these people are supposed to be grown-ups. So I can't believe that someone's being bullied still. They are not in middle school anymore. They should realize this. I understand you don't want to interfere, but sometimes, interfering it's necessary. I don't know exactly how bad the situation is or how the situation is developing, so I cannot give you more concrete advice, but you have to assess the situation. If it's really a bad bullying, I think someone should interfere because it shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth giving up a little bit of your own comfort to help someone who's going through a really difficult situation.
Yeah, especially if you feel like it's an unfair situation. Nobody should be going through that.
The next one is related, although a little bit different. My colleagues spread malicious rumors about me. The alienation I feel, plus the self-doubt from my experiments not working over and over, is making me miserable. How do I feel better?
So about your experiments not working, I would talk to your PI or mentor, and someone can give you a hand and figure out why they're not working. People spreading rumors, that's, again, they should be behaving like grown-ups and they shouldn't be doing this. I would just talk to them, why they are doing that. Maybe they are not even realizing that they are doing harm to someone. So I think opening up and go and confront them in a peaceful way would be useful and informative.
I calculated that because of the number of hours my graduate work requires, I'm making below minimum wage. That makes me feel so worthless and also pretty embarrassed because I compare myself to my friends in real jobs who are making so much more. How do I get over these feelings and motivate myself?
I'm sorry to tell you, but that's something that is gonna keep happening after grad school if you stay in academia. It's most of the people who still do this job is because we love it. And yeah, we don't get much money for it, but we get other things that other people don't have in their jobs. I was talking to this friend the other day. He makes almost 150,000 a year. I'm not even close to that, not even in a million years. But he was telling me how miserable he feels about it. Like, he just goes there 9 to 5, do this. I mean, for my job, I love my project. I'm always very excited about it. I have a great relationship with everyone, and I love my job, and I consider my job and my project a part of my life. This guy, yeah, he makes a lot of money, but I don't know, he was even talking about quitting the job because it's not worth it, even with all that money. So I guess you have to focus on that thought. And I mean, eventually, maybe one day they will raise salaries and funding for science. Maybe one day this will happen. We have to keep positive.
But until then, probably disconnecting your feelings of self-worth from how much you're making, because that day may be far away. I don't have much background in statistics, so every time it comes up in my project, I get really freaked out and am afraid I'm going to mess it up and look like a fool. How do I get more comfortable with statistics?
So I felt exactly the same when I started my PhD. And what I did was I applied and attended courses that the university was offering for statistics. So I started feeling a little bit more comfortable with them. And after that, I actually found out that nobody knows about statistics. I found out that not even my PI and other colleagues were very confident of why they were using this test or the other. So don't over-obsess about it, because you'll be fine. And usually you can also find help in other labs that they are better at statistics. There's always a good way of finding collaborations, and they will help you. Like, science is the beautiful thing of science. There's a lot of collaboration. So yeah, maybe try and find some courses to get more comfortable yourself, but don't obsess about becoming an expert, because it's fine.
I think this is another moment in which the talk to people thing is really important, because if you pretend that you know about statistics, then you're going to contribute to the bad statistics that are out there.
Yeah, exactly. Statistics or anything else, never pretend that you know about something that you don't know. Just be honest. Say you don't know. Nobody expects you to know about everything. And it's fine to say, I don't know. Always fine.
And in many cases, better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also jump in and say that there's a textbook about statistics called Discovering Statistics Using Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll by Andy Field. And if you want a book about statistics that's actually interesting, I highly recommend it. I change my mind constantly about whether I should try to stay in academia or pursue other careers after grad school. How do I make up my mind?
That's a tough one. You're gonna have to make the decision. What I found is towards the end of a PhD, people have a lot of questions and doubts because you are very burned out after so many years working towards your thesis. So give you time, don't make rash decisions, and think about it. You'll find your way. You'll find the path that you should follow.
I'm a naturally anxious person. How do I plan my future after grad school without getting overwhelmed?
I think a lot about my future as well, and it also makes me anxious about it. So I always try to remember that maybe there's no so much rush to have a plan just now. Sometimes even having a plan doesn't mean anything because things keep changing. I don't know, I would say focus on what you're doing right now, and also talk to people. Talking to people helps to figure out what maybe you want to do in the future.
Maybe do some yoga and then directly after that, plan your future.
Yeah.
Plan a small aspect of your future.
Yeah, you don't have to plan all your future in one go also. Maybe just making small decisions every now and then so you start building a plan.
Yeah, and you can also invest in your future anti-anxiety or something like that, because if you start planning now, then you know that that's going to be less anxiety that you have to deal with in the future, even though I know that that can be difficult to do. My PI talks a mile a minute and assumes I understand everything she's saying, or she just doesn't care if I don't understand. I don't know which. How do I get her to slow down and talk with clear language so I can keep up?
I'm sure she wants you to understand. So I would ask her to slow down or break it down. It's fine. You are in training. She's supposedly your mentor. So she would be up to explain to you and speak slower. I think you just should tell her, because if you don't tell her, she will just carry on doing the same thing. She will think that it's fine, and you just have to let her know.
I don't feel excited about my science anymore. I'm a few years into my PhD. How do I decide whether to stick it out or leave with a master's?
So I'm not sure if you're referring to not being excited about science in general, or about in particular your project. Sometimes we are bad luck and the projects are not the best. They don't give nice results or pretty pictures or anything, but it's still science. I mean, running experiments is still running an experiment, and it can be just as exciting as if your project is working. So I think you can focus on that. If you are still finding that it's not exciting for you, maybe science is not your path, and that's fine. You will just need to find out something else that actually excites you and makes you happy.
Yeah, I think one thing that can really help is to start to understand what are the different kinds of careers that there are out there, and which of them require a PhD, which of them you can get with a master's or just with a bachelor's degree, and see if any of those do start to excite you. I just moved to a new city after starting my postdoc, and I'm feeling really depressed. It's harder to make friends than it's ever been before. I have barely any time. I'm making so much less than everyone else I know, and I feel way too old to not even have a significant other. How do I get out of this funk?
So I lived in 4 different countries, 5 different cities. Every time I move to a new place, it's starting over again, because I always move to a place that I don't know anyone at all. So my advice is to force yourself to go out there, even when you are not in the mood. I know it's very difficult. I struggled a lot doing it, but then once you go out there, you start talking to people, you'll find out that it's easier than you think. So even, if you can find even like a French class or a yoga class or go to the gym or something like that. People here, I find that they are very sociable, and actually San Diego has been the easiest city for me to meet people, because everyone's so open all the time. It's been harder in any other places, and it still worked out for me when I did these things. You just need to force yourself. I know it's easy to say and a lot harder to do, especially when you are in that cycle of just feeling bad and feeling alone and everything. But just try to push yourself a little bit every time, a little bit more every time, and you'll get there. You'll be fine. You are not old. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think if you feel like you're having to push yourself, but everyone else socializing just comes naturally, you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
And the people you meet when you force yourself to go out are also the people who are forcing themselves to go out. Because I'm a very social person. I have a strong community, and I have to force myself almost every time I'm doing anything social.
Yeah, I'm not social, and I know I have to push myself a lot to do stuff, but it works out, and it's worth it. I mean, when I'm saying I'm not social, I mean I'm not that open in the beginning or something like that. But yeah, it's just like with everything, you just need to start.
Great. Well, thank you very much for answering these questions.
Thank you for listening to Bold Adulting. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and rating on iTunes, even if that's not how you listen to the show. Want to leave a review but don't know how? Email Masha at boldadulting.com and I'll help you out. Note that my name is spelled Masha. There's no R in there. You can find Bold Adulting on social media and also find my personal account at The Genetics Gal. Find lots of resources at boldadulting.com, including a free fill-in-the-blanks 7-step guide to confidently reach out to people. There you can meet our mascot, Courage the Confidence Cat, who is on his own journey of overcoming trauma to live a peaceful and content life. You can also learn about hiring me as your quirky confidence coach or for a speaking engagement. You can also fill out a scholarship application form, as I do offer a limited number of free or reduced price sessions every year. Finally, if you want to contribute but don't have much time and maybe don't even know how you can help, ask me about Bold Adulting micro internships. And now the Bold Adulting jingle, written and performed by my spouse, Matt Evepak. Thank you for listening.